Loud. Very loud.
Jillian was living a full life. Even though it was full of silence. But someone she trusted set her up.
Mickey gave you something, didn't he? And he asked you to hide it for him, to keep it until he came back for it.
Following us. They're filming us. They know everything we do.
She still got it. I don't know if she knows it or not, but she still got it.
Mickey's dead. Will you want to be next? Have you got her?
Hey guys, this is Communications, and welcome to my review of Hear No Evil. What you can't hear could kill you. Hear No Evil is a 1993 thriller starring Marlee Matlin, D.B. Sweeney, and Martin Sheen, and it's directed by Robert Greenwald. If that name kind of might sound a little bit familiar to you, well, it's for good reason, because it's the same guy who directed Xanadu. No, I know I meant some of you. There's probably a lot of people who don't find this director's name to be that familiar, but if you're familiar with Xanadu and how bad it is, you will be familiar with Robert Greenwald. I can say I was pretty much surprised that the same guy who directed Xanadu directed this film, and I thought he did a really good job. I thought he did a really slick directing job here with Hear No Evil. And at the end of the day, I really enjoyed this movie. Out of all the 3 movies that I watched that dealt with main characters who had problems with have disabilities, this was my favorite. And this also happens to be the one that has the lowest rating of all of them. Mute Witness gets a huge high rating and praise all across the board. Blink gets about on IMDb, it gets about a 10 point. It gets like 10 points higher than Hear No Evil. I'm sorry, I think Hear No Evil is a lot better movie than Blink. And it's a movie that nobody likes, it seems like. There's no critics, there's critics don't like it. I don't even think there's a single positive review on IMDb. And I don't even know if there's even a review of this movie on YouTube. So I might be the first that's going to do that. But I really liked this movie for what it was. Was it groundbreaking? No. Was it a bit formulaic? Yes, it was. Was it something that it's going to knock your socks off? No. But I thought it was a well-acted, well-performed, exciting, and engaging thriller with good characters and good performances by D.B. Sweeney and Marlee Matlin, and slick direction by Robert Greenwald, and I thought a really solid atmospheric score by Graham Revell, and a nice location in Portland. I think that helped my love of it a little bit, because that's my hometown. This was filmed in my hometown of Portland, Oregon, and that was nice to see that on camera. And overall, the story's kind of been there, done that. It's definitely a take on Wait Until Dark, if you've seen that movie, the 1967 film. And yes, Wait Until Dark is a better movie than Hear No Evil, but Wait Until Dark is one of the best thrillers ever made. So, I mean, it's kind of hard to top it. But I think Hear No Evil, is a little step below. I was sufficiently entertained. I thought it was suspenseful at moments when it needed to be. I really liked Marlee Matlin's character, Jillian, that she played. She was deaf, but she wasn't dumb, and I liked that. I liked how the film gave her moments. I like how it gave her a moment, let her fight back at the end against the killer and get the final blow. I like that. I like the fact that she could fend for herself. I really, like I said earlier, I like the fact that she wasn't dumb. She was deaf, but she was also smart. Where she kind of outsmarted the killer a little bit at the end, I really liked. How she turns up the music really loud in the lodge and makes all this noise to disorientate him, and makes a makeshift torch to turn on The sprinkler, I thought that was another way to, slow down the killer. I thought that was really ingenious on her part, and kind of a really well written part of the film. And yeah, like I said, it's not gonna, rock your world or anything. It's not gonna be something you haven't seen before, but in some ways it kind of is. I think it's unique because of its lead. Marlee Matlin plays a deaf woman. She actually is deaf, by the way. She's not only the lead in a thriller, but well, that's the main thing to me personally. It's a thriller film with a deaf woman in the lead. I've never seen a movie like this before. I've never heard of a movie like this before, especially when it comes to that, a deaf woman in the lead. You see a blind woman in the lead all the time. You see that tons of times. Much like Mute Witness, it stands out from the rest because in Mute Witness, it dealt with a mute woman, and here it deals with a deaf woman. And played wonderfully by Marlee Matlin, who's very likable in this. And she's a great actress. I mean, she won an Oscar for Children of a Lesser God. So it was nice to see her in this type of movie. And she's a lead, and she's also a romantic lead in a film like this. How often does that happen? A deaf woman as a romantic lead. Not very often. And I thought the film handled it rather well. I thought the whole relationship between Marlee Matlin and D.B. Sweeney, I thought was I thought it was compassionate. I thought it was genuinely compassionate, and I thought it really worked. I thought they had great chemistry. I thought they were a lot of fun to watch together. It was a relationship that I bought, and then I was surprised to see, like in the majority of the message boards on IMDb about this film, they say there's no chemistry between the two. It's one of those love stories where they just fall in love, and I'm like, okay, for people who bitch about that, please stop bitching about that. I mean, because almost every movie fucking does that shit, where the lead woman or guy falls in love with another woman or guy, and they just fall in love, and then the movie goes from there. Stop giving me that shit. I'm sick and tired of hearing that as a criticism for a film, because every goddamn movie does it, all the way down to the 1930s and the 40s. Every movie fucking does that shit. It's there might be a rare occasion where, yeah, it might take a little bit longer to build up the relationship. Oh, they just met and now they fall in love. Come on now. That's a shitty criticism. I mean, you're entitled to that opinion, but I'm honestly, I think that's a shitty criticism for a film, because there are millions of movies that I can come that have that same thing in them, and there's probably movies that you like that have the same thing that happens, where they just meet and then they fall in love and you have no problem with it, but here in this instance you do, and I don't really have a problem with that. I don't have a problem with that when it comes to a movie plot, because it happens so much. And I thought it worked. So I think that's another thing. I thought they had great chemistry. I thought there were a lot of sparks that flew. I really had a lot of fun with the scene where they're alone in the lodge, and before, and D.B. Sweeney is trying to get Marlee Matlin to teach him sign language, about stuff that deals with what happens when you're making love with a deaf person. And, I thought it was kind of fun little moments that made me chuckle, where he's like, well, what's the sign for horny? And she's like, yeah, here it is. It's like, ah. And I thought that was kind of funny, and it was nice and it was a heartwarming, it had a heartwarming touch to it, this film, I thought. I can be a softie sometimes. I know I have a tough exterior, but I can be a softie sometimes, and I can be open to a straightforward thriller like this with a romantic bent, a romantic part to the plot. And the key word is, I have to buy it, and I have to buy into it, and I have to actually think it's believable. And I thought it was believable here, the relationship between D.B. Sweeney and Marlee Matlin. I also thought it was genuinely heartwarming, and I actually thought I thought they were a good couple. I know it sounds lame, kind of. I don't know if it sounds lame or not, but I'm just saying that I thought they were a good couple, and I think that helped me as the film went along, when it got a little bit more suspenseful, near the end or in the middle of it, it helped me become even more suspenseful. It helped me become, not me become more suspenseful, but it helped me get into the film more, and it helped me feel the suspense that the film was trying to convey more, because I have bought into the characters and I like them and I don't want bad things to happen to them. And I think the film did a good job with that. And I don't think they didn't just meet and fall in love either. So the critic who said that, he's wrong, because they first met at the funeral of one of her friends, played by Marlee Matlin's friends, played by John C. McGinley, who I enjoyed as well. And they met, and she gave him her card, and she drove off. They didn't just meet and fall in love right away. It took a crazy scenario where she ended up getting terrorized in her house by a killer who's looking for this stolen coin, which was stolen in the beginning of the movie in a pretty bang up job of an opening sequence. This movie opens up with a bang, literally. This guy walks up to a security guard and shoots her point blank, blood squibs and everything, and then he goes in and steals this coin. And then you're introduced to Marlee Matlin's character, and I really like the way that the film introduces you to her. It starts out with you hearing the sounds of the park and everything, and then it completely puts them on mute, so you can experience what it's like to be in her shoes. And I thought the film did a great job with that throughout the movie. When it decided, I thought it was slick and stylish direction and cinematography, and these moments where, and good sound editing, where, okay, we want to put you in Jillian's shoes, so all the sound goes away and you experience it from her point of view, and I like that. I really thought the film did a really good job in those moments, and those are some of the more suspenseful, unique moments of the film. And so what happens is the coin's stolen. John C. McGinley, her friend, talks to the guy who did the murder, and he ends up getting the coin from the guy, and he wants to head off. He wants to take it for himself and get rich. And he asked his friend D.B. Sweeney, who I thought he did a really good job here. I've always liked D.B. Sweeney anyway. He plays a character named Ben Kendall, and he asked his friend John C. McGinley. John C. McGinley plays Mickey. And so Mickey asked his friend John, not John, Ben. Mickey asked his friend Ben for $1,000 so he can get out of town, because there's this corrupt cop, played by Martin Sheen, who does a good job as the villain of this piece, who's gunning for him. And he wants to get out of there, get out of town so he can, pretty much so he doesn't die. And so Ben gives him the money, and then what happens is he drives off a bridge and his car blows up. And so I thought it was a pretty good, well-shot sequence. And then you have the funeral, and then there's an weird, kind of strange choice of music here in this film. You have the music used in this film. You have reggae, or you have a little bit of reggae music, and you also have a little bit of soul music, it's kind of an interesting sort of feel at the funeral sequence, which is actually filmed at the Rose Garden in Oregon, in Portland, which is a nice touch. And then that's where Marlee Matlin first meets up with D.B. Sweeney's character Ben. And then what happens is she gets terrorized by a masked killer at her apartment, and the masked killer ends up choking out her best friend, and he goes after her. But D.B. Sweeney comes in just in time before the killer ends up, finishing off Marlee Matlin, and he's looking for the coin. And the coin, I thought, the hiding place for the coin, John C. McGinley, he hid it in her beeper, which I thought was actually a pretty clever choice. And what happens is, because of this terrorizing, because she was terrorized in her own apartment, she doesn't feel safe there, and so she ends up staying with D.B. Sweeney. And so that's how the relationship builds. And it's not like they start falling in love right out of day one. I mean, he just lets her sleep, and then it seems like at least a few weeks, or maybe, I don't know how long, because the film doesn't exactly tell you how long she's been there, but it's been maybe almost a month or something. A month or so, and D.B. Sweeney's actually trying to learn sign language, and I like that touch that the film has there. I like the scenes where she puts some toast in the toaster oven, and she can't hear it pop, so it burns, and sets off the fire alarm. And I like this other touch that the script had too, where D.B. Sweeney's character is an insomniac, which I thought was how you don't really see that very often, where the main character, the main male character is actually openly an insomniac. And so he's an insomniac, he can't sleep, and so he's barely got enough sleep as it is, and then the fire alarm goes off, and I like how he just jumps up out of bed and jumps up on top of his cupboard and smacks the fire alarm off. And then he goes in, talks to Marlee. He takes the burnt piece of toast and just throws it right in front of Marlee Matlin, and he's all like, loud! Makes a really loud noise. And she's like, oh, I'm sorry. And then she does the same. She does the same sort of thing where she leaves some silverware in the trash compactor and she turns it on, and D.B. Sweeney comes back and grabs the silverware out of the trash compactor. Says loud noises, And I kind of like that, how you see how this relationship would starts to build and how it would work, and how they'd be able to how a guy who doesn't know any sign language, how a guy who hasn't really dealt with anybody dealt with deaf people, is able to actually fall in love with this woman and also deal with these sort of quirky problems that come along with it. And I thought it was entertaining to sue me. And then as the film went along, Martin Sheen is intimidating Marlee Matlin. He intimidates her verbally in one tense scene. He doesn't beat her up or anything. And while she's hanging out with D.B. Sweeney, she realizes that there was a tape that Martin Sheen might have recorded of John C. McGinley, Mickey's character, talking to the guy who did the coin robbery earlier in the film. And if they find the tape, maybe they can take it to the FBI and they can implicate Martin Sheen as being in on this as a corrupt cop. And so then I thought, then you have this, I thought was a pretty tense sequence where D.B. Sweeney uses his rock climbing expertise and climbs up into Martin Sheen's high-rise house, which is in the woods, which is on stilts. And so he gets up there and gets in there and looks for the tape. And just as he's got the tape, Martin Sheen comes back because he only went in there because Martin Sheen was at an opera. So then Martin Sheen's character, Lieutenant Brock, comes back from the opera right then at the moment where D.B. Sweeney's still in the house. And yeah, it's a simple thing, but I thought it was so suspenseful because of that. It adds a bit of realism. I mean, yeah, it's simple, but sometimes simple really works. And I thought it worked there. It really did. Martin Sheen's got a gun. He's looking for D.B. Sweeney, and D.B. Sweeney just barely makes it out of there. And then while this is going on, the film also cuts to Marlee Matlin being chased by one of Brock's henchmen. He chases after her, and in a tense scene where she's trying to get help on the phone, on the payphone, but she gets put on hold by 911, which is pretty sucky, and she ends up fending for herself, knocks the glass out, and incapacitates the henchman and runs away. And eventually she ends up running into D.B. Sweeney, and he's got the tape, and then they end up going to the FBI with it. She reads the lips, implicates him. The FBI realizes they have enough information to try to nab him. And I like the setup where they nab Martin Sheen. They nab him during a rally. Marlee Matlin is running. She's doing a rally in Portland. She's doing a race. And I like how she outsmarts Martin Sheen and his henchmen. She lets one of his henchmen, the one she incapacitated earlier, grab her and try to put her in the back of a car and drive away. And then right off the bat, the FBI is right there, and they arrest the guy. And then D.B. Sweeney goes in and he meets up with Martin Sheen, and he tells him, I got the tape. And of course, and then I like how you actually have the cameramen, the FBI guys are masquerading as cameramen who are filming the race, but actually they're filming Martin Sheen and D.B. Sweeney's exchange so they can get Martin Sheen's, get his words on film, to nab him, to send him to jail. And I like how, I thought there was a pretty, definitely a bit of machismo and, shots fired, verbal shots fired during the sequence. Martin Sheen was like, you don't want to mess with me. And I thought Martin Sheen did a good job. I thought he played a good bad guy. I definitely was intimidated by him, and I definitely wouldn't want to cross him. And when D.B. Sweeney says, I don't really have the tape, he elbows him in the stomach, and he makes a good exchange about, how a broken rib, a broken rib can be pretty bad. For one time, it can cause a punctured lung. You want a punctured lung? Actually, I thought he did a pretty good job being intimidating. But then it's already too late because they already got enough footage on him to nail him. And so DB Sweeney smirks at him, and the FBI close in and arrest him. And then this is when the movie kind of takes a little bit of a downward turn, but at the same time, I still really enjoy a lot of the aspects that happen in the film's climax, where it becomes a cat and mouse. It's one-on-one. The killer and our lead, Marlee Matlin. She and DB Sweeney go to a lodge, which is, I think it was filmed at the Timberland Lodge in Oregon, and they go over there and they have their they're going over for a retreat. They've been through a lot of stress and want to go over there and relax. DB Sweeney goes to get her some ice cream on his bike, and then what happened? And then Marlee Matlin realizes something is up. She finds the coin in her beeper, and she tries to call DB Sweeney, but the phone line's been cut. She also looks back for the caretaker. She's dead. And then the masked killer, the same masked killer with the ski mask who went after her earlier in the film in her apartment and choked out her best friend, but didn't actually kill her, which I like that aspect of the film as well. And I even like the way the ski mask killer looked like. He wore a ski mask, but he also wore goggles that gave him this sort of insect look, which I thought was kind of creepy. And then he goes after her, and there's a nice tense scene where she's hiding in the kitchen while he's looking for her. And I think she sneezes, she does something, she makes a noise that makes him find her, and then she runs away from him. And then I really like the scene where, like I said, she uses her intelligence. She's smart. She's a smart woman. She can fend for herself. She may be deaf, but she's not dumb, and she's sure as hell is not going to go down without a fight. And she ends up turning up the music on the stereo and does all of that and to disorientate him. And the song that's on the stereo I really liked. It's from a band called Virgin Steel. It's a song called On the Wings of the Night, which I'd never heard before until this movie, and I really like it. It's actually one of my personal favorite 80s hair metal songs now. That definitely an underrated song from an underrated band, because I went and listened to the majority of their album where they published that song, and I really liked it. I really liked the album, and I really liked that song. So Virgin Steel is definitely a band that nobody talks about. It's too bad. I think they were really good, and it's a fun song, fun vibe to it. And then she ends up hiding in this area where all these windsurfing equipment is, and I like this sequence, which probably would have been pretty interesting to see in the theater, where her beeper is, she doesn't know it's on. She didn't switch it off to vibrate. It's been switched to so it actually makes a noise. So it ends up, leading the killer to her. And she doesn't realize this until too late. You think it's, she's screwed, but she ends up flipping the tables on him, and she uses the beeper as a way to trick him. And then you find out in a twist, spoiler, of course, this whole review has been spoilers, and it's a movie from 1993 nobody watches, so which is too bad, but still. But 1993 film. But anyway, so what happens is you find out on the twist that the killer, the guy with the ski mask, who's been going after her throughout the entire movie, who's been hired by Martin Sheen to take out people and look for the coin. I guess you thought he was hired by Martin Sheen, but I guess that wasn't the case, because you find out it's John C. McGinley. It's Mickey. And John C. McGinley did a good job acting in this, and I thought he did a good job playing a creepy, killer, but it was one of those, huh? It was one of those head-scratching moments where you're like, he was friends with Marlee Matlin's character. Mickey was friends with Jillian. He could have just asked for the coin. She would have given it to him. He didn't have to try to choke her out and kill her earlier in the film. And he sure didn't have to kill her now. And it just didn't make any sense. It's like, did he get knocked on the head and go crazy? I really think it should have just been still some kind of I would have been perfectly fine if it was just some henchman that Martin Sheen had hired to do his dirty work, and there was no twist. It was just some faceless, masked henchman, and you never get to see who it is. But you know, it's a like think about it, like Michael Myers. You know, you get to see his face, like in some of the films. What I'm saying is that kind of just faceless, masked, menacing killer. You don't get to see who it is. You don't know who it is, but you know that he's going to kill her, and she's got to fight for herself. And her boyfriend, D.B. Sweeney's nowhere to be found, so she's got to take him out. But finding out as a twist that John C. McGinley just, it was surprising, but at the same time was like, why? How did he fake his death? And I thought he was broke. How did he afford this? How was he able to do that? It was a pretty elaborate way to fake his death, getting the car going off the bridge and exploding. And why is he trying to kill his friend? He could just asked her for the coin in the first place. It makes no sense. And that's why I knocked the film down a little bit. But overall, you know, but eventually, like you know, like I said, the twist is kind of lame. But Marlee Matlin, Jillian ends up knocking him out a window though, and I thought she used her intelligence really well. She tricks him with putting the beeper out a way to trick him, and then she knocks him out the window with one of the sails from one of the windsurfing with a windsurfing sail. Knocks him out the window. He falls through a garden skylight to his death. And then the film ends with the coin being put back in the museum, and D.B. Sweeney and Marlee Matlin are together, and they're you know, checking out the museum, and then that's the end of the film. And it doesn't sound like much, but I really enjoyed the film. I think it was a really great, straightforward thriller with some really solid, you know, great for what they were, performances by Marlee Matlin and D.B. Sweeney. I thought the direction by the guy who directed Xanadu was actually pretty slick and stylish. I thought the choice of location was great. It was great to see Portland, Oregon being used in the film. And I thought the cast was solid. Martin Sheen played a good bad guy in the few scenes that he was in. I thought it was fine that he was only in a few handful of scenes. I thought if he had more, it would have overstayed his welcome. So I thought it was fine the way it was. And I loved Marlee Matlin in this. That she was adorable. I also thought at the same time she was a really fun character to watch and to see her journey, and you really cared about her, and she was likable. And I thought she was unique, and I really liked her character in this. And D.B. Sweeney I like too. For some reason that's a guy who I've always pretty much had a soft spot for. I really do. I've always enjoyed D.B. Sweeney. I even liked him in a romantic comedy, The Cutting Edge, with Moira Kelly, which actually is one of the few more romantic comedies that I actually really like. And I always thought he was a little bit of an underrated actor. He's just kind of an everyman guy, and Matlin is kind of an every woman. It was kind of nice to see that. It was simple, but I thought it did a great job. It didn't need to be complex. It didn't need to be overcomplicated. And I was actually glad the movie was like that. It was straightforward, and because of that, it was really entertaining. And I wasn't bored. I didn't find it. I would never thought for once, oh, it's so cliched and blah 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 blah. Because I know it's a thriller, and this genre's been done to death. So there really wasn't any chance in my mind that it was going to be a mind-blowing, unpredictable thriller. I never really thought that was going to happen. But I think it was well worth the watch for me because of the cast, because of the performances, because of the characters who I grew to love over the course of the film, and because of the uniqueness of a deaf woman in the lead and getting the film actually putting you in her shoes at parts of the film. I thought was really well handled. And overall, I just really, really liked this movie. I mean, it's a movie that a lot of people probably wouldn't agree with me, but if you haven't seen it yet and it sounds interesting, I would recommend it. I would recommend it, at least one watch. But at the end of the day, it's all up to you. And if you see it and you like it, cool. If you see it and you don't like it, cool. I mean, because at the end of the day, the only opinion that matters when it comes to the film is your own, and because you're the one that's watching the movie. But anyway, I like the film. I don't know what people were expecting of it, critics. It wasn't never going to be a box office hit, and it was going to be hard for it to really separate itself from the just tons and tons of other thrillers that had been made before 1993. But I thought it managed to do a good job separating itself because of entertaining, a fast pace, well written characters, and the uniqueness of having a deaf woman in the lead role in a thriller, which I don't think has ever been done before or since. But anyway, I really don't know what to say about Hear No Evil. It was rated out of 5 stars. I'm gonna give it 4. Like I said, I really like this movie. I would definitely pick it up on DVD if I saw it. And yeah, I thought this is a gem. I thought this is an underrated gem. I thought this is one of those movies that I thought was really. I was always curious about it, and it definitely did live up to my curiosity. It definitely did spike my curiosity for a good reason. It wasn't a waste of my time, and yeah, I really don't know what to say about Hear No Evil, except I definitely would say this is one of the more underrated thrillers of the 1990s. Nobody talks about this movie, and I think that's too bad. I think it has a lot of things that do work in its favor, and so what if it's a bit formulaic? It's still, I still think it's a great movie in its own right. Um, but anyway, I don't know what else to say except thanks for watching my review of Hear No Evil, and I will see you guys later. See ya.